There we go. Sorry about that. So as part of the approval process to how we created these tracks, we went through a land division tentative plat process. That is PLLD there at the top screen. I'll include a link so you can see some of the backup material for how that land division occurred. We then went through a final plat process that is also listed. That has been approved at the city level. It is currently in the final steps of review with the county surveyor, and we anticipate those lots to be legally here created within the next coming weeks. So by the time we enter into any agreements or an award as decision, these legal lots will exist. I don't anticipate any lines being changed at this point in time. So please feel free to kind of review that material and all the subsequent documents that go with it. I know there was a question about how the monumentation and things like that. You'll notice that in the final plat, we actually had to do a two-step process. So we did a partition plat for the right-of-way, and that was all created. And then we did a final plat for the lots. So that takes care of kind of the monumentation for the roadways out there as well. Go over briefly the zoning. So this is underlying light industrial, so Bend Development Code 2.4. It does have the Juniper Ridge overlay zone on top of it, and this is really intended to promote employment-based commercial industrial uses. Subsequent to that, there is a employment sub-district that was originally about 306 acres in size. This, I'll go here with some graphics here in a minute, but that really will only continue to apply to Lot 5. We went through a CC&R amendment with the Owners Association just this last 3 or 4 months. And we are looking to do a code amendment to match the reduction in the CC&R boundary to the employment subdistrict. So what that looks like is the graphic on the left in the dark kind of gray, that's about 306 acres. That was the original employment subdistrict boundary, as well as the original CC&R boundary. The graphic on the right in the red is the revised CC&R boundary and what we're proposing to reduce the employment subdistrict boundary to match. So we have that sort of tentatively scheduled now for a code amendment package here in April and May. So as we draft any of our purchase sale agreements or any condition, this will be a condition on the buyer, condition of the seller here as a city to execute this code amendment, because we do realize that is important for the sale. You will note that a portion of Lot 5 still remains along Talus there to the west of 18th Street. That portion is, unfortunately, we trying to work with Les Schwab. They have certain rights under the CC&Rs that extend beyond the right-of-way. So that boundary matches their rights within the CC&Rs. So the employment subdistrict and the CC&Rs do extend about 50 to 100 feet just north of Talus. We do have all this documentation online if you need to review. On our Juniper Ridge land development page, under governing documents, we do have all the CC&Rs, the 2 amendments, and anything else that would reference that. So please feel free to look at this section, download those documents for review. In the back of the CC&Rs is some, I know there was a question about the height limitations. You can see a table in the CC&R Amendment 1 that's a little bit clear about what the heights are. There's a graphic in Exhibit C2 of the CC&Rs, which sort of outlines that. I'll give you my interpretation is looking at it is the height limitation is only applicable to everything south of Talus, east of 18th. So I don't think, in my personal opinion, it has, but I know that was a formal question, and I'll have a much more formal response when we do our clarifications. But looking at it from our perspective, the height limitation does not impact Lot 5. Sorry, wrong screen. All right, moving on. So the improvements that we're asking for, we are recognizing that we are asking for improvements beyond what normally be permitted through the Bend Development Code. So these are kind of conditions of sale. We're asking for additional improvements. So for Lot 5, we are looking for some full right-of-way that in some instances may only require 75% right-of-way if you were to develop this not through this sale. So we are looking at it's either going to be a 3/4 or the remaining of Talus to the west. There is a development and approved permit in for Lot 7, which is just to the south. So depending on their timeline and development, that will dictate how much of Talus to the west you would be constructing, and a site running north from Talus to Olivine. The expectation is the developer will build the full right-of-way. So sidewalks on both sides, curbs, full right-of-way. That'll also go for 18th. Obviously, that's in between the lots. And then that'll also apply for Talus heading east. A couple things there that is tied to our Public Works campus because that was already done prior to the platting. They are not under any obligation to construct that right of way. So we are asking as part of our condition of sale for that full right of way to be constructed. And again, for North Ignis and Olivine, we're just asking for 3/4. In reviewing this, our private engineering, the reason for Ignis to the south, where it ties into Cooley, is really dependent on fire and access and circulation. So that may not necessarily need to be developed in the primary, depending on how you may phase development within there. But that's something that we would look to ask that be developed as part of the sale. So please, as you're reviewing for lot 5, you are taking into the consideration the amount of improvements that we are asking and have that factor into your compensation package as well as your schedule. For lot 8, and I'll go a little bit more in detail about some other things in lot 5, but I'll stick to the improvements for now. So lot 8, we're asking for the full construction of Cooley. Again, that runs along the northern portion of lot 8, but also the southern portion of the Public Works campus. And then your dedicated portion beyond the roundabout there with Ignis to the east. In reviewing, I know there was a question about whether roundabouts are going to be constructed now. In reviewing this with our engineering staff, we don't feel the roundabouts, the development that could be proposed, even at a max, we don't feel is necessary to trigger any roundabouts at this time. So we aren't expecting or asking that a roundabout fully be constructed. We did dedicate it for the future, but as the connection of Cooley out to Deschutes Market is probably in the longer term, 20+ years, we don't expect a roundabout is necessary to meet the circulation needs for any future development this time. So we'll be looking for, if a single proposer is proposing on both lots and they're awarded both, some form of 3-way T intersection. If one or each, then we'll be working with those through the infrastructure agreement to define exactly how that intersection may be constructed with some ideas. But ideally, it's just a 3-way T, or perhaps it's a Cooley into Ignis continuous with the east side from Cooley tying in that kind of dead ends. That is a stop sign and just a partial development road. So as part of the RFP package, we included a sewer analysis. So this is really just a basin study to help understand where the gravity sewer is. I have highlighted here, as part of the Public Works campus, we are continuing to construct the gravity sewer in Talus that will tie into the North Interceptor. So while we're asking for the proposer of lot 5 to construct the full right-of-way, they won't be responsible for any of the sewer improvements on Talus that will have already been completed. So they are currently under construction today. I'll follow up if someone has a question about scheduling, but I'll follow up on that. But we are actually under construction today. So I believe that's going to be relatively here soon and not really hold up any sale. But again, could be something we highlight as a condition of the sale. I know there was also a question about whether you could tap into the North Interceptor. I believe you can. It runs in this section about 20 to 30 feet deep. I may look and see from our engineering group to find a specific detail that may go with it for something of this size. And I'll try to follow up on that question, but I don't think that's an issue. We just haven't had it yet up here and no one's proposed that. So our idea is once the Talus line in, that kind of serves most of that lower half. And then new construction would kind of move and tie into itself. Lot 5 here in the pink, they will have to extend a sewer line along Cooley. It does gap, or sort of, I don't know, you probably can't see my mouse, but right where the purple ends to the west, there is a high point there. So the Public Works sewer is actually running to the north and Talus into the North Interceptor. So lot 8 has the option of constructing their own sewer line in Cooley and tie in North Interceptor, or finding another way to tie into the North Interceptor. And just for reference, they are building, as part of the Public Works campus, part of the road for their own entrances. It's about 100, 200 feet from the existing terminus today. So I'll include here links to those plans so you're able to see that. And if you need to get some more accurate numbers on the distance or lengths of those right-of-ways, you can kind of pull from these plans and get an idea of where that's at. Another question that came up was, and it's a notes on a plat, and I appreciate it, is there is a portion of andesite. This is the former Caldera Street. That is kind of a double situation. We weren't able to vacate this as part of the plat process. So as soon as the plat is done, recorded, we'll be initiating a vacation of this portion on lot 5. That is a responsibility that we take as a city. So that will be a condition of closing for us, is to vacate. It's easier if it's city initiated. So we're going to do that as soon as the plat closes, and move forward here with the vacation of that property, and that land will be included in the total. I did see a question like, what is that actual total? I need to go kind of back to our engineers and kind of verify that, because we do have some discrepancy in the acres, whether it's 75 or 73. So I will, as part of a clarification, I'll clarify the acreage, and once vacated, what the total acreage will be for lot 5. Another item that's come up in those conversations is our IGA, and that is our agreement with ODOT around our PM peak trips and certain improvements. We are currently still in phase 1 on that IGA. Again, the IGA document can be found on our governing documents page. So if you'd like to review it, it's right there. Please feel free to jump on, download it, take a look. It is an agreement between ODOT and the city to perform certain improvements based on the number of trips. It is the same boundary as the employment subdistrict. So just to kind of go back, as a reminder, on the left, that is basically the IGA agreement. It has some exclusions of certain developments that are included in that. However, the general boundary is this. On the left of the existing employment subdistrict. Right now, we have 293 trips that have already been allocated to date. That is roughly about 6 PM trips per acre. There's still roughly 28 acres of existing development platted lots that still have not gone through the permitting process and actually added to those trips. And then right now, approximately 50 acres of lot 5 is still within the IGA boundary, and approximately 1.5 acres of lot 8 is within the IGA boundary. So please take that in consideration. The city is actively engaged with ODOT, discussing potentials to remedy, either find a way to satisfy this agreement, revise it. But to date, we just have just over about 407 trips available. And so once that triggers, the only remaining improvement before we can move to the next 600 trips is that the southbound ramp terminal for Empire. So again, as a city, we're still engaged with ODOT and trying to open this agreement back up for future development, but it does have an impact as you're looking forward, as you look at the type of development you may be proposing and how many trips that might be. We are not initially concerned here in the interim. We think we have enough trips to satisfy. However, again, as you may move to multiple phases of your development, this could have that kind of impact. So please consider that in your proposal, how this may impact that. If there's an allocation of trips you would like, please kind of talk through that in your proposal. That would go a long way for us. As far as development incentives goes, we have 2 up here in Juniper Ridge. The enterprise zone, that is administered through EDCO. So please work with them. That is based on waiving your property taxes for eligible businesses, and that's really based on the type of employment and the median income of that development. I'm sorry, the median income of the employees, my bad. And then we have the urban renewal tax increment financing. So this is located within the Juniper Ridge Urban Renewal Area Plan. That plan is in effect until 2035. It has a total maximum deficit, so that's the amount we can spend to support projects, of 41 million. To date, we've spent just around 10. So we still have approximately 30 million that we can allocate towards the assistance for new development and infrastructure. However, the way we have it set up today is it's based on a rebate program. So as your property, as ownership changes hands, that increment now goes in the TIF. As you improve the property, that increment continues to go up property tax. We can then structure a deal where we essentially rebate that increase in property taxes back to you over that 10-year period. So please feel free to kind of review those documents. If you have questions, reach out to myself, or Jonathan Taylor is our urban renewal project manager. He'd be happy to kind of walk through that. But what we have it set up today is a rebate program. So please consider some of these incentives as part of your compensation package, or as you discuss the infrastructure costs, what you might be seeking as some form of rebate, reimbursement, or assistance in some of those costs. And please factor that into your entire sort of construction package or compensation package for us to review. So that is where I'm at today. I tried to go through some of the questions that were asked. I may not have covered them all. We have obviously plenty of time today. So please raise your hand or go ahead and enter it into the question and answer, and I'll take questions. And then if not, we can disperse and go about our days. Thanks everyone for joining. All right. Kirk, I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to try. Or Misty, let's go with Kirk, if you can unmute him.
Okay, I think we got it. Matt, thanks for all the information. The first question I have is, you didn't touch on during the large lot subdivision and the plat you're recording. I assume you did receive will serve letters from the private utility providers.
Yes.
Is that correct?
We did receive will serve letters. I understand there's definitely, I know where you're, there's some larger citywide conversations going on with Pacific Power and their ability to serve. So the letter that we have from Pacific Power basically says they have the ability to serve this property. It's just not a matter of when. So we understand we're dealing with significant developments, new developments throughout the city, where Pacific Corp is struggling to provide the necessary ability to serve today. So I don't have any further comments that we're still talking through that, but we did receive will serve letters from CNG, Pacific Power, and our internal city water and sewer.
Yeah, those limitations by Pacific Core are sort of ominous from a timing standpoint, right? I mean, for us to sort of meet city goals on getting things extended and built out. So the more you can give us before the proposal date or the response date would be great.
Yeah, I'll see what we can do. We haven't had this conversation with council on those limitations. This is kind of an evolving topic. This has been, it has been moving around the city, and it's now appearing to be quite a citywide issue for some of the new major developments that are taking place, who are seeing some halt because they can't get into Pacific Corp's grid. We haven't approached this with council. Right, as of today, I can't say that council's going to say we're going to pause the RFP or anything in order so we work that out. It may be that's just something we take into consideration. And if everyone's, if the uncertainty leads to a reduction in value, that may, move council to sort of support a decision, delay this and work through that problem first before bringing this back out to bid. So we're probably not going to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk to council about this before the submission date, but I appreciate Taylor Brooks, Jeremy relaying me that information last night, and it's definitely related to our city leadership is something we need to address. So we'll do my best to get some more answers, in the next coming weeks.
Great. That's, I think we'll all be working on that question. So
yeah. All right. I see Todd Taylor. Misty, do you mind?
Okay.
Good morning,
Thanks,
Todd.
Following up on a couple of the utility questions that piggyback off of what Kurt just asked. Starting with the trips. Does the trips that are remaining include the city of Bend right now, Pacific Power, Saran, and also are those all factored into those trips that are left, or do those still have to be factored in?
No, so the City of Bend Public Works Campus is outside the limit, so it doesn't count. Pacific Corp is, so it's when your TFR is approved and the Saran, so that's all in. So the remaining lots that we don't have counted are lot 6, lot 1, 2, and lot 11 of the existing. Everyone else is accounted for.
So that's just looking at your phases, which you put up on the screen.
Yep.
That's a tough one to figure out, particularly with all the other infrastructure that's required by the city. Is the risk that's what's going to come after that, or what improvements are going to go burden back on the developer? And that's a hard one, Matt, to budget.
Say the outside of the Juniper Ridge area, what improvements?
Well, if you look at your first phase that's here, you have your 700 trips, and you said there's 400 remaining out of that, correct?
Correct.
And so
Correct.
what happens if you get past the 400 again? So let's say that, you know, this development, if depends on how it comes together, you could
Sure.
fairly quickly exceed your 400.
Yes.
And then what?
There has to be a financial contribution between the city and some agreement between the city and ODOT to fund the Empire Avenue improvement. And that we're currently working on with them now. That then would allow us to trigger the 600 since that's already under construction and those improvements are done. So at that point, we would have 1,300 trips to relay. We're also talking about reducing the boundary. This is the last development that ever had to do this. Any new developments have never had to do any of these agreements. ODOT has been amenable to that. We're just trying to see how we can bring that in. So right now, there's just one offsite improvement that's required. And the way the IGA reads, it's an agreement between the city and ODOT, not necessarily developer and ODOT, but that's something I'm working to, I'll clarify a little bit further. But in theory, what's funding that Empire is our SDC contributions.
Okay, so just from as we're working on the pro forma, because you could very easily, again, roll through your 400 trips. So that the developer should not then anticipate any additional cost that will be contributed towards phase 2.
The phase 2, yes, that's how I'm reading it today. But I've been engaging with Russ as he's been engaging with ODOT to clarify, make sure that is our stance.
Okay.
That our SDCs, that we're not asking the developer to fund that improvement.
And then back to Kirk's question on the utilities. As you know, that was alarming to us to hear about Pacific Power. And then there's Cascade Natural Gas. It seems like all utilities right now are working diligently. Michael's is working diligently, and City of Bend now running, upsizing all these gas lines.
Yeah,
that's another cost that could be, you know, depending if you have to contribute towards any substation work that needs to be done. So that clarity that you can provide will be really important. Because as you saw yesterday, we're having a tough time getting power to the one that we're in for now. So that's a really important piece. Okay, great.
No, I appreciate it.
But it's not just the power, but it's gas, any of the data lines and same. Those are all important pieces.
Okay, I hadn't heard any on those. I know while our public works campus is not using gas, we are extending the lines so that it can be picked up. Not a huge amount, but it's just so we don't have to rip up any existing right away once that's done. But they had indicated that they had any capacity issues to us as part of that. But again, we weren't electing to use gas, so we didn't run any models. But if anyone's running into that, I would appreciate knowing, because that would play into our.
Your Cooley Road, if you go to Cooley, back to your map on lot 5, lot 8, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So that becomes an interesting piece of infrastructure, is that roundabout. And I guess the first question is it important to have a roundabout there based on how you access lot 8? So when we ran the models, you really end up with a fairly large lot on the roundabout, because the way the code reads in a roundabout, you've got to be 300 feet back from the throat.
Correct.
So to get a driveway into that, you're not going to get one off. You really got to have back where your red line is, kind of where it angles,
where it kinks.
You end up with a large lot there. And so is there some thought that maybe a roundabout is not the best piece of infrastructure for that piece? And then, because again, it's just how you're kind of stuck with how you develop that lot.
Yeah, I think we're happy to review it. If anyone's been following the county TSP, the construction of Cooley all the way out to Schuss Market is a low priority. So I don't anticipate in the next 20 years that we would be, unless something happened that triggered us to create that connection. And so really that roundabout is trying to feed traffic for moving north, for what may be either a future interchange or a future connection should we have a UGB expansion. But again, that is really more of the 30 to 40 year outlook, probably not the 0 to 20 year outlook as we're looking today, along as we interpret CFEC rules and other kind of transportation rules. So I think there's definitely, through our plan process, is re-looking at that roundabout. I think looking with planning engineering, we're pretty much all in agreement that no development is necessarily going to trigger the need for the roundabout. The traffic models aren't. So I think I think we'd be open to seeing how is there an interim sort of process that can be a future dedication or some other temporary, knowing that it could last 20 years. So I would just, if you include that proposal, that's something for us to look at. Again, obviously, through any PSA, we're going to do a due diligence period. I think that's our time to have our pre-app and kind of walk through that with our planning and engineering staff to kind of hone in on some of that more specific detail for that site. When we sort of designed this 20-acre, we were sort of torn between whether someone may subdivide it or it may be a large single user, and it's kind of right in that. So we're kind of like, if it's a single user, they may only have the one entrance. Obviously, if it gets subdivided into 2-3 lots, yeah, we're facing that dilemma of the access.
Or more, if you put 4 or 5 lots
yeah.
in there. That
If
makes
we do
it
like the
really
1 acre
difficult.
spot.
Is the roundabout though, let's assume that the thought is long-term, it doesn't go away. Is that going to be a cost then is burdened by the city at a future date? Or will that have any effect on the landowner?
No, we talked about it before we put this out and decided against having any form of contribution or anything like that, because we thought it's so far outside. The triggering traffic impacts for land are so outside of this development scale. So it's really more set up for long-term future. So we were not asking for any developer contributions for the roundabout.
But it would be a full street construct, to and through, and then you build a 3-way intersection there where Ignis comes back and ties into Cooley. I'm assuming you have a stop sign there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's probably a conversation as we go through the due diligence, is there a bonding or something else for that east as it goes to the boundary? If that's not needed as part of the development, maybe that is just a development contribution for us to then take into consideration for the future, should that extend all the way out through. Again, we don't, if we're to do EGB expansion, actually consider extending Cooley out to the Deschutes Market.
Okay. We've got a few more, but go ahead. We'll go to somebody else.
I don't think we have anyone who's raised their hand yet, so feel free to keep going.
The question on the sewer, and I want to make sure I understood what you said. So, you're allowing to tie into the interceptor on your service lines. But you said there's a section of the interceptor that isn't constructed that needs to be constructed.
Oh, sorry, no, the interceptor's done. We're
Gotcha.
building the remaining gravity line in Talus that'll tie in. So
Gotcha.
in theory, development on lot 5 could just do services into Talus and then it'll drop into lot 5 without, at least for the lower half. So if we look at our
the upper half, you'd have to tie back into the
correct.
interceptor.
Yep. But if this is a phased development, we would, that kind of thinking ahead, maybe that southern half is developed first, tie into the existing Talus line. Lot 8 may, depending on how that's structured, they may have to build their own kind of gravity line back along Cooley, or they could be able to do a private service through the lot and then tie into the north interceptor themselves. Because the public works campus will not be tying in any sewer in Cooley. It's doing everything to the north. So that stretch along Cooley, if there needs to be a service line, it's really up to the development on how that needs to be constructed or devised. So they can get away with not having a sewer line in Cooley and do something shallower in order to get into the north interceptor there to the east. I think we'd be able to look at that. Otherwise, if they choose to place a service line all the way down Cooley, a
When
public
the city
sewer.
does the sewer line, which is your line tying into the campus clear out to Ignis, or I can't remember
the north interceptor. Yeah, Ignis.
Are they going to, is that subgrade going to be built at the same time? Because I'll have to get to grade before they put the sewer in.
I will double check that, but I believe so.
Yeah.
I think it's only 20. It may not be the full right of way width. It may only be like a 20-foot wide for fire access in terms of like what is actually constructed. I'll find out on that.
Yeah, it's just the time to do it when they drill and shoot it.
Sure.
If mounds through there that have to come out. Okay. That's all I have right now.
Anyone else? Don't see anyone raise hands. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm happy to end the meeting. You can always reach out to me separately. Please, if you have, it'd be great if you're able to write these questions and send them to our real estate shared email. That way we can make sure they're formally responded to and get that, I'm sorry, to me. That would be awesome. Otherwise, we've been sort of noting this and recording it, and we're going to try to incorporate many of these questions into our responses as well. I appreciate everyone for coming out today and joining us. And with that, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.